Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for another installment of our research webinar series hosted by our team here at the Michigan Virtual Learning Research Institute, or MVLRI. The goal of MVLRI is to expand Michigan's capacity to support new learning models, engage in active research to inform new policies in online and blended learning, and strengthen the state's infrastructures for sharing best practices. MVLRI is a division of MVU, or the Michigan Virtual University, a nonprofit organization whose mission is advancing K-12 education through digital learning, research, innovation, policy, and partnerships. MVU is also the parent company of Michigan Virtual School, a supplemental state-sponsored virtual school, Michigan LearnPort, an online professional development portal for K-12 educators and personnel, and MyBlend, a blended learning initiative providing K-12 schools with resources, products, and services to personalize learning options for their students and improve student achievement. Quick disclaimer before we begin. Today's presentation will be recorded and shared publicly. Consequently, anything shared during this webinar, including chat comments, could be shared publicly. This webinar may represent a presenter's or an attendee's personal views, opinions, conclusions, and other information which do not necessarily reflect those of MVU and/or the Michigan Virtual Learning Research Institute and are not given nor endorsed by MVU/MVLRI unless otherwise specified. Now, with that being said, we are extremely excited to have the team of mentors from Three Rivers Public Schools here in Michigan presenting with us today on the top 10 strategies for mentors. Before we begin, I'll take a moment to introduce each of them. Julie Howe has been the online learning coordinator at Three Rivers High School for the last 7 years. She earned an MA in Educational Technology from Michigan State University, secondary education certification from Goshen College, and a BA in Business and Technology from Webster University, Leiden, NL. Three Rivers High School has 3 full-time mentors. In the fall of 2014, Three Rivers began a program at the middle school with 2 online classroom mentors. The program has averaged a 95% student success rate over the last 7 years and was recognized during the 2012-2013 school year for their high level of student performance. Cindy Harradine is a graduate of Ball State University with an associate's degree in business. She was a substitute teacher in Three Rivers, Michigan for 6 years before becoming an online mentor at the middle school level. With this being the first year for online classes at the middle school level, class sizes are fairly small. This semester, Ms. Harradine has 48 students in 16 different courses. Josh Bell has 17 years in education and has taught computers, language arts, social studies, and career exploration at the middle grades in Ohio and Michigan. He's almost completed his first year as an online mentor and has a bachelor's in elementary education and a master's in educational technology. Susan Rathburn has been an online learning coordinator at Three Rivers High School for 3 years. She studied elementary education at Western Michigan University and was a substitute teacher for Three Rivers Community Schools for 13 years. When Three Rivers High School expanded their online program in 2012, Susan became one of 3 full-time online mentors. This semester, she is mentoring 146 students in 64 different courses. And lastly, Vaughn Peterson was born and raised in the Metro Detroit area of Michigan. He received his Bachelor's of Fine Arts from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. Peterson is in his first year as an online mentor at Three Rivers High School. He now resides with his wife in Three Rivers, Michigan. With that, I will hand it over to our extraordinary team. Thank you.
Thank you for that really nice introduction, Justin. That's great. We're going to start off our presentation with Vaughn Peterson discussing about connecting with the student.
Hello, my name is Vaughn Peterson, and I will be speaking today about connecting with students in the classroom. One thing that I've noticed with online education is that oftentimes people may see it as more impersonal because students rarely get the interaction that people feel that they can get outside outside of a classroom when they're working one-on-one with the computer. So one of the best ways that we can try to connect with the students as online mentors is trying to get to know the students, making attempts at trying to memorize every student's name and use it to actually greet them as they enter into a classroom. Say, hello, how's your day going? How's everything going with your classes so far? Another example is try to get to know when the students' birthdays are. We have something called Power School that lists every student's name when we do attendance, and also has a candle next to it if they have a birthday. So acknowledge the student, daily if they have a birthday that day. It helps to, like I said, build a rapport with the students. It also helps build a trust with the students as well. Some of the other strategies that myself and many other mentors have used is giving students a lot of different ways to have a conducive learning environment. So students learn in different ways, including online. And oftentimes, the classroom can be a way of actually benefiting the student when it comes to their learning style. So for myself, I know other mentors, we also oftentimes would dim the lights. Some students feel that having lights is kind of a stressful situation for them. So I'll dim the lights and open up the shades and allow natural sunlight to come through. One other way that I do for myself to create a conducive learning environment is I try to make myself accessible as possible. So I actually move my desk closer to the middle of the room so that students have access to me to ask for help, as opposed to being at the front of the room and almost being like a monitor to the students. I want them to take on more of that mentorship and be amongst the students in the middle of the classroom to where they're actually circling around me. And I've seen that to be very beneficial to where now students feel comfortable coming up to my desk and asking for assistance. Last but not least, a great way to connect with students is actually to provide positive reinforcement and encouragement to a lot of students as well on a day-to-day basis. Try to get around to as many students as you can when it comes to their classes, and try to compliment them if you've seen them actually do very well with an assignment, a project, and or if you see that they've moved ahead with their progress. There's also students who may not be as motivated, and those are other students where opportunity presents itself to actually connect with the student. Try to find out, maybe what's going on outside of school or maybe inside of school with that student, so that you can try to find some type of strategy to help provide more encouragement for the student. You can even meet with the student after class, or ask the student to meet you after school to try to talk more about what kind of strategies you can use together as a way, again, to encourage the student.
Thanks, Vaughn. Next up is strategy number 2, Netiquette and online communication. And this will be presented by Susan Rathburn.
Hi, this is Susan Rathburn. I'd like to apologize first for my voice. My allergies are making my voice a little froggy today. I'm going to talk about Netiquette and online communication. The first few days of the semester in our online classes are kind of an orientation time for our students. We go over a packet of information that we've created that clearly explains what to expect from us as online mentors, what the kids can expect from their online instructors, and what we expect from them as students, as well as giving them helpful information and tips for making the most of their online experience. In general, we say that as mentors that we will help them learn to navigate their course first, because that's usually what they're most worried about when they first are starting an online class. We're there to remind them of their pace, and we talk a lot about pace and staying on track to get through their course in a timely manner. We will help explain assignments that they may be a little bit unsure about. Maybe they're really not reading all the information that they need to. That often is what's going on, and so we kind of just sit with them and go through it with them, and usually that helps to kind of clarify what they're expected to do. We find resources that they may need, and such as maybe books or other materials that they're supposed to have. And then we also help with the tech issues that typically will happen in an online lab. It's important to point out to them that although we are in a classroom with them, keeping track of their progress in their course and posting a grade for our school and supporting them when they need it, the online instructor is the teacher in their course. And just like raising their hand to ask a question in a traditional classroom, they need to communicate with their online instructor, and they do that through the message system of their course, and that's what's going to help them to be the most successful. At first, some students feel a little bit shy about sending a message to another adult that they don't know at all. And they're often really they haven't really sent very many email messages either, because kids, we know, typically communicate with texting. So for some, it may just be a brand new experience even sending a message through the communication tool, which is very much like an email. We try to help them to figure out how to get in there and take advantage of that messaging system, because I've noticed that students who take advantage of it really become better at asking for help and for advocating for themselves. And that's what most of the instructors that I've worked with prefer to have them do. They really would like them to be the one to ask a lot of the questions, rather than coming to us and then having us send a message, which we will do if if we feel like we need to help in that way, we will. But I generally try to have kids do that on their own. It's a good learning experience for them. And as I mentioned earlier, because students are so accustomed to texting, we really need to explain some basic rules of sending a message to an instructor in a Netiquette lesson. And a lot of kids have never heard of the term Netiquette. And so we explain that it's just like when you have good manners in the real world and in a traditional classroom, you have online manners as well, and that's what Netiquette is. So although there's really no one set of rules for writing and sending messages or emails, there are a few rules that they should follow. And so the ones that I really focus on are that email messages are different than text because they need to be written in a more formal manner, and that includes correct grammar and punctuation. So they need to avoid using abbreviations like kids typically do when they're texting, like LOL and BTW for by the way, and write out the words that they want to say. And they should also really avoid emoticons or emojis, because that's really not necessary when you're communicating with your instructor. I also explain to students that online instructors often have a lot of students in their courses, and they may have several of the same courses. Or they may be teaching more than one course. So it's very important for them to always include their full name, the course name that they are taking, and the assignment that they're referring to, and put that in the subject line of their message. Also, it's really important, and kids don't really think about this a lot, but it's important to for us as mentors to talk about the tone of their email or their message. It's very easy for kids to type something out to someone else and not really worry about how they're really sounding and the kind of nonverbal cues that they're giving off. And so tone is very important in their message. They need to always be respectful and polite. And occasionally I've had a student who's kind of frustrated in their class, and they're really tempted to send a, kind of not so nice message to their instructor, and they might type a few of their words all in capital letters, and I often reiterate to them, do not do that, because that's like you're yelling at another person when you're sending a message, a written message in email. So you have to be very careful about keeping things very polite, very respectful. I point out that they should always reread a message that they are about to send to an instructor before sending it, because once you've sent it, you cannot unsend a message. And I end my Netiquette lesson by always having my students practice sending an email by sending one to me, introducing themselves, telling me a little bit about themselves, and maybe why they're taking their online class. This is similar to a lot of the introductory lessons in some of the online classes. And it also helps me to get to know them a little bit too, which is a little bit about like what Vaughn was talking about connecting with kids. And I actually try to reply to all of them as well. So I think that helps them to get to know me a little bit too. That's my Netiquette and online communication.
Hey, thank you, Susan. That was really nice. Our next presenter will be Josh Bell and Developing the Independent Learner.
Hello, I hope everyone can hear me. I am Josh Bell, and I've been at Three Rivers Middle School for about 10 years, and this is the first year I've been an online mentor. I really enjoy it. It's great to be a mentor. It's great to help kids with this life skill of being an independent learner. As you know, our society is getting more and more computer dependent, and a lot of times we're not with instructors or mentors or professors. We have to learn on our own. So it's important that we develop the independent learner. I believe that you know, as I teach middle school, I'm trying to transition these students into a high school environment. So I do believe in constant support. I believe in being there for any question that they have. I believe in making sure they know exactly what they're supposed to do as the learner. We basically have to, transition them, like I said, to be independent. So one of the things I try not to get caught up in is answering the question, I don't know what to do. If a student asks that question, it's probably because they are lost or don't know where to click on their online provider's source or assignment, but that doesn't mean the resources aren't there. They're just kind of lost. So what we want to do, instead of answering the question, I don't know what to do, we simply refer to them to the posted directions or help them find the directions. You know, I'm not the teacher, but I am the mentor, so I can help them and guide them to what's already posted. You need to remind them constantly that the instructions and directions are posted online. And if they still can't find what they need to find, I really refer them to their professor, instructor that's on the other end of the content. We are not the teachers, but we do intervene when necessary. But the kids need to develop that skill. They can email, like Susan said earlier. That's a good communication skill, to message the instructor in a proper way. They can email their instructors. I've also shown them supplemental materials that might help with what they're studying. Just because it's not sent with online content doesn't mean it's not good information. That could be another source of learning for them. So supplemental materials help. Just making sure they know how the course is to be navigated, how it's supposed to be accessed. All those things that Susan said would really help develop an independent learner. But again, you're not there to do it for them. You're just there to show them the way, I guess I would say. And it's not a bad habit for them to get into, to refer back to instructions that are posted, and not just read them once and then do the assignment, but refer to the instructions for assignments as they go through them. So that's pretty much what I have experienced in developing the independent learner. And it's nice when a kid can come into a classroom, a student sits down, they know exactly what to do, they ask you if they need help, things like that, but when they're really taking ownership of their own learning, that's really what you want to see here with becoming an online mentor.
Thanks, Josh. I really like your point about ownership. That makes, I think, a really great difference for the kids. Our next strategy is pacing and staying on track. You're going to hear pacing a lot today. Cindy Herodine from our middle school program will be presenting strategy number 4.
Well, hello there. I'm Cindy Herodine. Well, I am in the middle school, so I have completely different animals than those at the high school. But we definitely do a lot of the same things. We have typically a fairly quiet atmosphere in the classroom, although at my middle school level, I will say they are not quite as quiet as when I go over to the high school into an online classroom. They are much quieter there, but I think that's just the nature of the beast. So anyway, it is nice to have a quiet classroom atmosphere. It helps to keep the students on track. They don't get interrupted. We typically will shut the door. If it gets too hot in the classroom, we might open the door, but if there's a lot going on outside the classroom, we definitely want to keep the door shut. I will say that my students need to be reminded, I think I said this already, but they need to be reminded a little more often, but it is very, very important to have a quiet atmosphere. Also, another way to keep them on course is, or on task, I should say, is if they're in an interesting class that they enjoy. So if it's a class they enjoy, definitely they're more apt to be paying attention and not looking around and seeing what everyone else is doing and losing their attention that way. We have pacing guides, and for those of you that don't know what the pacing guides are, every online class has a different pacing guide, and it depends on if you're taking a trimester course, a semester course, and that pacing guide will tell them week to week where they need to be each week. So I have up on my classroom board, and I know all the other online mentors do also. For instance, this is week 17, so the kids will know when they come in on Monday, they need to look, okay, we're in week 17, where do they need to be by the end of week 17? That's our goal. I always remind them it's nice to always be ahead of time or ahead of your pacing guide a little bit. You don't know when you're going to get sick, maybe especially during the winter months when you may have a snow day, of which we had, I think, maybe 10 this year or something. So they know the pacing guides are very, very important, and the students know if they're not where they need to be on their pacing guide, they may have to do some work at home. That's not out of the question that they may have to do some work at home. We also have weekly conferences, and for me, I even do it more often than weekly. And to be fair to the high school mentors, they have so many more students than me. They, I know, do it at least once a week. I typically almost every day remind my students where they are because they're younger. They need a little bit more guidance in that. But I'll conference with them and say, well, it looks like you didn't do quite as well on this on this assignment, so you need to figure out what you need to do because this needs to be done properly, otherwise you're going to fall behind. Also, in all of our classrooms, we have multi-level learners. I know, for instance, I have some students that are very, very low learners, and I have students that are very high. And so that's the one, it's one nice thing, but you have to remind each of them that they each need to be guided along to stay on track and know where they need to be at all times, or they're going to get behind. Also, I like to know the content as well as I can. This is my first year, so I'm learning every day, kind of along with the kids, but quite often I'll try to take a peek at what they're doing so I can help them move forward when they need to move forward. And I will say, if it's something that I don't know, I'll get a hold of Julie at the high school and ask for her guidance on something, because we don't want to say, well, you can't work on this today because I can't help you. Otherwise, they're going to get behind, and they're going to, you know, every day that they fall behind is one day that we've, you know, lost in their online learning. So staying on track, pacing is very important. The students need to know at all times where they are on their pacing guides and make sure that they're every day coming in, logging on, and getting right to work. And I tell my students, you need to work bell to bell, because, you know, if you're way ahead and they need to work on something for another classroom, that's one thing, but they need to be working on their online class and get where they need to be to stay on track. So that's kind of how we do it. I mean, that's how we do it here at the middle school. I know they do similar at the high school. So it's kind of what I have for that.
Hey, thanks, Cindy. And thanks for getting those middle schoolers ready for us. We really appreciate it.
Sure.
Oh, our strategy 5 is time management. And you'll probably hear pacing guide again, or assignment calendar. And Josh Bell is going to help us with presenting time management.
Yes, I'm really going to be happy here that I went after Cindy. She covered a lot of what I wanted to say, but I want to reiterate some of the things that she mentioned. Also, talk a little bit more about pacing guides and how I use them. For time management, you know, this is another life skill. You're going to use it in every aspect of life, your career, family, job, whatever. You need to know how to manage your time. And for me, I definitely refer to the pacing guides when I help mentor these students. It's also sometimes considered to be a calendar. This is a little different than the syllabus. With the pacing guide, you know, the assignments are broken down, and some providers even show you when it should be turned in or submitted, and they have dates that the assignment must be submitted by. And that's going to be different than a syllabus, because the syllabus is your broad, general learning outcomes or topics. But when you look at the pacing guide, you really want to post that for kids, because it helps them stay on track. You know, if I know assignment B is due on March 27th, then I know if I'm ahead or behind automatically, because I've either turned it in by March 27th or I haven't. And I sometimes even give a checklist to the kids where they can just kind of mark off when they've completed each assignment. Some content providers also show a grade so that you can see what you know, your score is for each assignment. That's another way to check to make sure that you've completed it. If you have a grade or feedback from the online provider. It's okay to print that pacing guide out, okay? Just because everything's online and with computers doesn't mean we can't help develop these skills with paper, pencil, that kind of thing. So yeah, a checklist or printing it out is very helpful. You know, Cindy talked about some days off. You know, we have so many things that can keep us from learning. It's kind of a thing where you need to come into the classroom and make sure that that's the time that you're going to put into the class. You may not have that hour outside of class where you can access a computer. You may only have what's provided you that day at school. What if we have a fire drill that day? You know, that takes 10 minutes out of your work time. What if we have a day off? What if we have illness or something? So you have emergency days, technical problems, those kind of things you cannot foresee. You have to make sure that you're working ahead. And if you're done with an assignment and it only took you a half an hour and you have another half an hour left in school, you might as well go ahead and start working ahead, because you never know what's going to happen. You know, for us, I try to build in a calendar. If the provider doesn't build it, I try to make one up that would be kind of based around our own school calendar. So let's say we have a Friday off that, maybe the online provider doesn't know about, we have to build that into our cushion days, I'll call them somehow, because you have to make sure that they're working and their assignments are still due even if we don't have school. So, I really try to make sure the kids work ahead. And if they don't work ahead, they need to at least be on pace. And on pace means everything is due when it's due. You can't turn things in late or, go back. Sometimes you have to go back and repair or redo an assignment or add something you forgot, and that's okay, but typically you want to make sure that you are staying on pace. Time is something you can't get back. Once the time is over, there's no way to go back and say, oh, I needed 5 more minutes or something like that. You have to treat it preciously. If you take a day off, that means the next day you have that much more work to do. If you're supposed to do one day's assignment and the next day you didn't do that assignment, the next day you have to do 2 assignments, or 2 days worth of work. So I have some seat time waiver students who actually don't come into school, but I monitor their progress online. And if they're supposed to work for 6 hours a day and they only work for 3, that means the next day they'll have to work for 9. And it's hard for them to see that, but when that's part of your job as a mentor, to guide them to that. Time management, again, it's a life skill. Some of the things that Cindy said, I just totally agree with, especially the middle school or younger, high school student. They may have never done anything like this before. It's our chance to guide them and help them develop this skill. So, again, time doesn't come back to you.
Hey, thanks, Josh. I just noticed that Terry said she could not hear me. Is everybody else able to hear me?
Yes.
Yep, okay, good. Our next strategy, number 6, is collaboration with the online instructor. And I think this is a really, probably one of our critical areas that we value. We put a great deal of value on. And Susan's going to be presenting this section for us.
Hi. Yeah, collaboration with the online instructor is so important. I'm sure I send at least, I would guess, between 10 and 20 emails a day to instructors. Or respond to emails that they've sent me. Especially today, we've been doing quite a bit for some of my seniors that were supposed to be done on Friday. And I really appreciate that because they are conscientious and caring about their students, and we've been communicating back and forth to say, okay, is he really done? Does he want another few minutes to work on this? Is this the final grade? Because our seniors have to finish early. Friday was their last day, and we're trying to wrap up their grades because they graduate on Thursday. And so I really appreciate being able to communicate with our online instructors. And there's so many I wish I could actually meet face-to-face because we've talked so much online. Another thing that several other things that we communicate about, there's many reasons that mentors need to communicate with online instructors. We share accommodations that a student should receive based on their IEP or 504 plan. I had a student with a 504 plan this past semester. She's a senior, so she's done. And she finished her class beautifully. And she had a couple of important accommodations that we needed to fulfill for her, such as when she got new information in her course, it needed to be presented in a little smaller steps than maybe it was presented within the course. little bit more step-by-step instruction. And then also her 504 plan asked for a study guide to be provided at the beginning of each chapter or unit, focusing on main ideas and key points. And her online instructor was great with helping her along throughout the course of this. She did a really nice job. So, and it helped my student to finish very successfully, and she felt really good about her experience taking the online class. Another thing that we will communicate with online instructors about is if we have tech problems, which, as I mentioned a little earlier, just are, they're bound to happen in an online lab, in an online learning environment. Sometimes we have a tech problem, all kinds of little things can happen where kids, their screen freezes, or they get kicked off a test for some unknown reason that we're not really sure why, or our internet just goes down. And so I will make sure to let the instructor know what test they were in and that they need to have that reset. Also, we will sometimes point out, occasionally we'll find a broken link or a web page that students are being directed to in their course that has just changed and is no longer available. And so we have to communicate with the instructor to figure out how students are going to get that information in a different way or a different link or a different site. Well, we also will point out issues with maybe an assignment or a test that could affect a student's grade. For example, recently one of my students was taking a multiple choice test, and the right answer for one of the questions appeared twice, and my student said, I'm not sure which one to pick because they're both right and I can't pick both. And so I said, well, just pick one and then we'll send your instructor a message and tell him what happened. And he was great and he took care of it on his end. So my student didn't lose any points for that. Occasionally I noticed that there's a mistake on a student's grade page. And I'll contact the instructor to record a grade for an assignment that I can see that the student did, but it may be still saying needs grading, and for some reason it's just the grade isn't showing up, or maybe they did the assignment and it might be a discussion board post and the instructor just didn't get that. And so I'll just, point that out to them, and the teacher or the instructors are usually really good about fixing that right away. I actually had a student recently, on their grade page, an assignment showed up twice, and those points were also added into the total points, and so she received the points for one of the assignments, and she didn't receive it for the other one, even though they were both the same assignment. And so the instructor completely took care of that for us as well, so that the extra assignment was removed and her grade in the course was accurate. And then I think probably one of the most important things that I am communicating with instructors about is when we're just working together to help a student who's struggling in a course. We may throw ideas out to each other about what might be the best way to help them. I've had instructors prepare study guides, make additional notes for students, prepare a video explaining part of a lesson. I've also had instructors Skype and even offer to make a phone call to the school, or ask if I could let a student call, and they would just explain something quickly because it was just a little bit easier just to say it instead of saying it through an email. I've had a really great experience with most of the online instructors that I've worked with. Most of them are willing to go above and beyond and are very accommodating of our students. I've really appreciated that.
Hey, thanks, Susan. I think we worked with an incredible group of online instructors. Our next strategy, number 7, is collaboration with parents. And that will go back to Cindy.
Okay. I think I'm on here. All right. Well, I have contact with parents for a number of different reasons. Certainly with my number of students, I don't have to do this on a daily basis, but I will email home. Sometimes I'll email home just because a student has gone above and beyond in their class. I know as a parent myself, I always appreciate when I get a nice call or letter, of which we've also sent letters from the middle school, but a call or a letter or an email that my child or your child has done exceptionally well or is working really hard. It's always nice to hear that. So I do try to do that. I think it's a nice thing for parents, and I've definitely heard back from parents that they like that. So I definitely try to do that. With that being said, we also have to email home if a student is behind in their course. Or, and sometimes it's a phone call, but quite often parents are at work and a phone call doesn't work. So I have found that if I make I'll download the pacing guide and I'll mark on that pacing guide where that student needs to be. And in my email, I'll let the parents know that, this is where Susie needs to be, but she's 6 assignments behind, or she's missed multiple classes in the last few weeks because of multiple reasons. So I definitely email home a lot, and I share those pacing guides with the parents so they understand exactly what's going on. Also, when they come in for their parent-teacher conferences, I like to log on to have a computer logged on, and that way the parents can kind of see what the kids are actually doing. I suggest to the parents that maybe they have their students pull their Blackboard up at home so they can see what they're working on, how it's going for them, check out their grades in their Blackboard gradebook, because then the parents feel much more connected to what they're doing. I think they like being able to see, oh yeah, okay, I can see, because how we do it in our gradebook here in Three Rivers is we give one grade in our Power School gradebook, and then we update that grade every week. So if, 1 week a student may be getting a 94%, but maybe they fell behind that week. So the following week, we would replace that 94 with whatever they may be getting then. And if they're missing assignments that are actually due, we take that into consideration and they get the grade that they would get having those missing assignments. So maybe it'll go down to a 70. So it's nice for parents to understand how that works, that, once they catch back up, most likely they're going to be right back up to that 94, but they have fallen behind. So we like to let them know that they've fallen behind. So that brings me to my next point on here, where we update our grades in the gradebook weekly. So I remind the students every Thursday, Friday when we have our meeting, with each student, look at your gradebook, because if you notice you're 8 assignments behind, you now have a 64 in here. And most of my students will say, oh my gosh, my mom's not gonna be happy. They're gonna take my phone away. Can you tell them? And I'm like, well, you are behind and you need to maybe work on it a little bit this weekend. But the parents do know how we do our grades. And usually that's enough for the parents to see in the grade book that the students are behind. That's enough for the students to kind of want to keep working to get caught up again. So I definitely send pacing guides to the parents. I send emails to the parents. I will sometimes make phone calls home. Just recently I had a parent/guardian come in and sat with their student 2 days in a row because that student just for some reason was not wanting to get to work for me. But it was amazing when mom or dad or grandma came into the classroom, how they decided that maybe it was a good time to get to work. So, and that's because I called home and said, little Johnny isn't doing what he should be doing in class, and I've tried everything that I know how to try. So what do you suggest? And this particular one said, well, then I'll be there tomorrow. And I said, well, great, come on in. You're welcome any day. And you know what? Johnny almost got caught up, and it was a great thing. So, when you keep in touch with the parents, I have found that most of them are very receptive to any conversation, and they like to be informed about where their child is, because a lot of times the kid's like, yeah, I know, I'm where I need to be. Don't worry about it, Mom. I'm where I need to be, even though I'm getting a 60. So, as we all know, kids just want to be in charge, but sometimes we have to take charge. So it's very important to stay in touch with the parents, and usually it gets the kids to get to work. So that's what I have about that.
No, thanks so much, Cindy. I'm glad I had my microphone muted. I really enjoy your stories about taking phones away and whatever. Yeah, collaboration with parents is just a really important part of what we do. Collaboration with administrators. My turn. Collaboration and communication with administrators is a constant and ongoing process, and it has brought a lot to the success of the program. This includes principals, curriculum director, athletic director, our wonderful counselors. We only have one counselor at the high school and one counselor at the middle school, and I don't know what we do without either one of them. They help us with making sure there's a good fit, with scheduling. Our communication with the administrators goes for a list of classes for the websites, presentations for scheduling and for staff, curriculum and content, procedures and establishing policies, even with the school board for 21F, seat time waivers, and early release. We also offer reports after professional development, symposiums, call, other trainings. They help us, or initially we had a lot of discussion on establishing our program goals with what we wanted to accomplish and mentor expectations. And I think that's worked out really well to have that clear line of expectations. I think one of the critical keys to success is scheduling and getting the proper fit of the student and the course. I think dedicated training time is really important, that they value what we do. We're considered a valuable part of the educational team at the high school and the middle school. We're in parent-teacher conferences. We're in staff meetings. We are considered part of the team. We share data with our administrators. We have Google Docs, like a Google Gradebook. We share all of our classroom expectations and our policies with the principal, the counselors, and sometimes even the superintendent. We also work very closely with our technology director and tech team. Without them, I don't think we wouldn't be nearly as productive and successful, and student learning would not be as progressive. Without them, we wouldn't have the software that our students need. If we have tech issues are turned around and resolved well with usually less than a day, sometimes even within the hour. By sharing data with our administration, we share enrollments and the number of enrollments. Right now we have approximately 306 students in 520 different sections, courses. We share success rates, content issues, when there's cheating or plagiarism, we'll work with the dean. We confirm invoices. PLC notes are shared with all administrators every week in a Google Doc. For training, we've been given dedicated training time, and that works out really well. I think that's been an important part. We also have dedicated learning environments. We have labs with at least 30 computers in each lab. This year we've had to add a few laptops here and there to make it all work, but they've given us the resources and the space to do our jobs and to do it well. And they encourage the online program all the way around, whatever is in the best interest of our students. So next up is Vaughn. We're going to talk about the power of our PLC, which I don't know really what we would do without.
Yes, Julie. Yep, we're talking about the power of professional learning community, which we call our PLC. This is something that we actually have every single week on Monday after school, and I feel that it's one of the most valuable resources that we have at Three Rivers High School. The way it begins is that our online coordinator actually is able to email us via Google Docs with the agenda that we'll share at each PLC meeting. And via this, we're able to actually, I guess, enable us to put down any type of ideas or at-risk students, best practices, grades, any type of notes that we may have, any relevant topics, issues with courses and content structure, and also anything that we may have to bring to the table once PLC begins. Some of the ones that really come in handy is when we are able to actually identify at-risk students. And these are students who are identified as those who are having challenges in the classroom, students who may be in jeopardy of not actually graduating high school, students who have come from other high schools and need to actually recover credit. And those students are identified as at need and high risk in terms of in the classroom as well. And that way we know how best to suit the type of resources that we can provide for those students and what type of computer program we can have those students try to complete while they're in there as well. Something that we also use as in our PLC is technology. Mentors bring laptops, iPads, grade books, and other relevant classroom tools as resources as a way to access and share pertinent information amongst each other. So technology, I believe, amongst not just the students, but for online mentors is very intricate as well. This is something that we use on a day-to-day basis to access pretty much all the course resources, any information that we may use for tracking student progress. And during PLC, which is very valuable, is that we're able to share different tips and tricks that we use in our own classrooms as mentors with each other and what's been successful for us. I know for myself, being a newer mentor, I've leaned on a lot of the other mentors for help and assistance when using technology. They've taught me different uses of Google Docs, different ways to track student information, better ways to actually use multiple technology sources, such as having your own personal laptop at your desk as well as your desktop, as well as an iPad for information such as emailing, checking student progress, and checking grade reports as well. And pretty much our PLC acts as a support system above anything else. We oftentimes look forward to PLC because we're able to collaborate a lot of different ideas and also troubleshoot any type of issues that that's come up in our classrooms as well. And we have an excellent online coordinator who's has an array of experiences in every single class, and also working with different instructors as well. So when it comes to instructors, as many of the other mentors have just mentioned when discussing about our interactions with instructors, I know Susan was able to mention about the type of communication that she has daily with instructors. And oftentimes we all have daily communication with the instructors, and we're able to share that information during PLC times, which is valuable because we get to kind of bounce different ideas off one another once we've actually had the communication with instructors on how to better cater that course to different students. Another, I guess, benefit to PLC dealing with the instructors as well is that we often share different students as well. So each mentor has a group of students, but we may have students in multiple classes online. So I may have student A for a math class, and Susan may have student A for a science class. And those students who work in that classrooms may learn differently or maybe in a different progress in their class. So if student A is finished in Susan's classroom with their course, now Susan's able to tell me that and give me that information so that I know that I can push that student even further in my class or have them do some more work from the course that I have them with inside Susan's classroom as well. So for us, like I said, it's a huge support system that we have that benefits, I think, pretty much every single person. And we oftentimes say that sometimes it's not enough time in the day during our PLC meetings to get the amount of information that we need out to one another. Because again, we really rely on it for the student's success. Because as mentors, we rely so much on one another to try to help as much as possible with the students as well.
Hey, thanks, Vaughn. Yeah, I don't know what we would do without our PLC. Sharing our best practices and helping each other when, the tips and tricks, and when we have issues that come up, it's nice to be able to count on a team to come up with a workable solution. Secrets of success. I'm not sure that I have all the secrets, but I'll share some of ours. We've always, from the time we began, our focus has been on doing what is best for the student. That's a question we ask ourselves all the time. Is this best for the student? Is this the right course, the right mentor, the best fit of all of it, of all the options? It's important to give students options. Is the student for accelerated learning or for remediation? We always do what's best for the student. And part of that is to also making our labs and our online learning, we have multi-level, multi-ability in the same room. And we are kind of like a little one-room schoolhouse. It helps the kids, they're able to interact and collaborate with each other. But our focus has always been do what's best or what is best for the student. I think that selecting the best mentor for the right reason. We have phenomenal mentors. We've been very, very fortunate. They're dedicated individuals who want to be in school. They want to work with the kids. They value the online learning. They're engaged. They handle data, because there's a lot of data, a lot of detail, and they always pay attention to those details. We are very fortunate that we have the different personalities, that we are able to match up students to meet the personality. Okay, I'll admit I'm probably the mom personality, maybe Susan. Vaughn's our Zen mentor. He's got a very peaceful atmosphere and mentoring style. But it's nice to have that variety, and we've been very, very fortunate. We have been able to take mentors who are coaches, who are guides, truly mentors. They're not monitoring, they're not babysitting, they're not just putting in their time. They work very hard to make sure our students are successful and that learning takes place. We've been very fortunate to have training, to be allowed the time. Most of our hiring practices have been, we've been able to hire our mentors in June when we know there's going to be an opening. And then we've been able to have at least 2 days of training in early August before school starts, so the mentor has a chance to process. Now, with that said, poor Vaughn started 2 days before school started. And when he says he values the PLC, I know he's being very honest. And he came up to speed right away, and he's worked really hard to maintain that. It does help. And then resources, I would say, are dedicated PLC time and our great relationship with our tech team. That makes a huge difference in making sure everything is running and working and our kids are moving forward. And then expectations. Probably best said in our PLC notes that we share best practices. We are a team. No one person has all the answers. I certainly don't. But together, given our strengths and our talents, we're able to put together a phenomenal program. And you never know where that talent is going to come from. And we've always been amazed and impressed with the talent that we've been able to recruit. I think that sharing, we're pretty open. Sometimes that's a difficult thing to be open and say, oh man, I've got 5 kids failing and here's what's going on. What would you do? We're able to have that support, and I think that makes a big difference to be able to be open in that respect, to open up. It could be a real vulnerability, but it's definitely been a strength. Having the dedicated time and the support from the administration too, I think has made a big difference for us. We keep the online labs with the diversity at all levels of learners. In the past, we have had some labs that were just strictly credit recovery, and we find that can be a very difficult environment to manage, and it's difficult for the kids. So I think having our administrators support us and take our feedback and take our suggestions. Every year is different. Every semester has been different. The only thing certain is there's going to be change and there are going to be new challenges, and it's a wonderful thing when we can meet those challenges as a team and come out, and our students come out successful in the end. So this has been a wonderful opportunity for us to showcase our program. We're only more than happy to take visitors. If you'd like to come down to Three Rivers, please, you're more than welcome to come and visit us. Justin, I'm ready to turn it over to you.
Sure. Yeah, thank you so much. I did want to leave a couple minutes for questions. We are a little past time, but if anyone has a question, please feel free to post it there in the chat window, and we can have someone address it, or we could actually have you post your contact information if you'd like to follow up with any one of our presenters here today. Really quickly, before we roll out, I just wanted to make mention of a couple things and have our attendees participate in a couple polls. So if you see the poll that's open there today, if you could go ahead and vote on how satisfied you were with the webinar and what sort of value you found in the webinar as well. I'll leave these open as I wrap up. We really appreciate you presenting with us, team, today. You guys were amazing, and we're so happy to share all of the strategies that you guys employ to achieve so much success in Three Rivers. We did want to point out just a couple initiatives before we wrap up. If you have an interest in participating in our Virtual Viewpoints podcast, or you'd like to listen to it, please feel free to check out the link there. What we like to do is amplify the voices of those working in K-12 blended and online learning and see how research informs their work. So we want to get a better idea and hopefully connect people with different ideas or different avenues of research or practice. Also, if you're interested in writing for us, you can check out our guest blogger program by clicking that link there. We'd like to disseminate all the exciting research that's taking place in K-12 online learning and provide that as a space to do so. We do have a webinar coming up. I'm sorry, that is the incorrect day. It should be Friday, May 22nd. That's this Friday at 1 p.m. We'll be hearing from David Daum and Craig Bushner on more research required, blended and online physical education. So please feel free to check us out there. If you're subscribed to our mailing list, which I'll throw up a link to in a second here, you'll get a reminder email about that webinar this Friday at 1 p.m. as well. In the meantime, if you'd like to keep in contact with us, you can reach us via email. You can sign up for our mailing list by clicking that link in the slide there. That'll take you directly to a form to be added to our mailing list. And you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Our handles are listed there, as well as our LinkedIn page, our YouTube channel, where we host all of the recordings of our webinars, and our webinars page on our home website, mvlri.org, where you can see all of our upcoming scheduled webinars, as well as the archive of all of our past webinars, with links to recordings, slides, and other resources that were shared during those webinars. Again, want to extend a huge thank you to Julie and her team at Three Rivers. You guys are amazing as always, and we're so happy to have you come and share. Thank you all to who attended, and we hope you have a great rest of your Monday. Take care.